Hello everyone, this is my channel Gringo Campesino. My name's Ethan. Thanks for watching. So today I was thinking about talking about driving in Colombia. The reason I'm talking about this is because just last week I was on a way to the gym in the nearest big town near me, about 30 minutes away. And the road I have to take is very winding and dangerous and mountainous. It is paved, but in some places it's very poorly paved. Anyway, I was blocked by two tow trucks with some cranes, and they were in the process of pulling out a very large truck who had swerved off the road and was caught up on a tree hanging off the cliff. I do have some video and some pictures I'm going to share, but unfortunately, because of the police keeping people away, I wasn't able to get some good video of the recovery, and I wasn't there during the accident. So the point is, when you're driving in Colombia, you need to be very careful. Colombia is not the most driving-friendly country in the world. They do not have an interstate system like the U.S. Divided highways do exist, but even the main route for big trucks between the main Pacific port, Buenaventura, and the capital city in the mountains, that road has to cross one set of mountains, very high mountains with volcanoes, and it has to reach its way up into Bogota, which is on another branch of the mountains. So it has to start at sea level, go over a small set of mountains with steep grade, go into a valley, another high set of mountains with volcanoes and earthquakes and the like, go down to the river bottom, River Magdalena, and then back up to Bogota. So that is probably the most important route in Colombia, and most of that is not divided highway. There are stretches of it that are divided highway, but do not expect an interstate system. There are lots of tunnels, especially Medellin, I believe, has the largest or the longest tunnel. I don't know if it's the largest or longest in, I believe, the Americas or the Western Hemisphere. Don't quote me on that, but it's a very large tunnel. It takes, I think if I remember right, it takes about 25 minutes to pass through it. Also, there are major bridges, some of which are not very well built. Anyone who is an American knows that the American infrastructure is collapsing, but I don't think it's quite as challenging as the Colombian infrastructure is to maintain. Colombia is not as rich of a country, but with the mountains, the rivers, the flooding, the tropical weather, the jungles, Colombian infrastructure is very hard to maintain. So you're going to find these long bridges, you're going to find long tunnels, you're going to find very winding roads, frequently not well maintained. My road, which I'm going to show some video later on, they have been working on one stretch of it for probably 9 months without fixing it. Maybe about 100 meters. The shoulder collapsed down the mountain, and they needed to fix it, and it's been down to one lane from two for about 9 months, and it's just opening up 2 lanes again. So be very careful. You will find people frequently aren't really good at driving either. No insult to Colombians, but a lot of people from the city, when they're going into these mountain towns, they don't know where their wheels actually are, and so frequently they'll be driving in your lane trying to stay away from the cliff edge, which I do understand, but it is not very good for other drivers. We also have a lot of tolls in Colombia, so if you are planning on buying any type of land, try to figure out where your nearest toll is, and if you're going to be going through that toll to go get some groceries, you might want to rethink where you buy your groceries or where you buy your farm. There are some other factors involved. There's a lot of people on the streets. Never trust Google Maps, for time, that is. I've found Google Maps pretty good for giving directions with some exceptions, but it is very bad at understanding how narrow a road is, frequently how narrow a bridge is. So if you have a big truck or a big van, something like that, you need to make sure that whatever bridge Google is making you cross is wide enough. You have to also add probably 20% to any driving distance. Unless you know your route, you know the plan, you know there's no traffic, make sure you add 20%, a few hours if it's a long distance travel. Driving distances here in Colombia is very different than what you will see in the US. I'm not as familiar with Europe, but in England I have driven some longer distances and very modern highway systems there as well, multiple lanes divided. Here that's very rare. And besides the fact that there's not many divided highways, you will find people frequently parked on the side of the road. If there's a 2-lane road, people frequently use the right lane to park their car. It's very frustrating. There can be 30 cars backed up because someone decided to put on his hazard lights and run into a store and block one lane. And so 100 cars are waiting behind him, trying to change lanes to get around him. And there's no social awareness for that. So be aware that you need to be very patient. Lots of dogs on the road, very few signs. Frequently the lines and the speed bumps are not painted. So you frequently, if you will come across a speed bump and it's not very visible. And so be careful if you're driving out in front of a lot of cars. Be very, very aware. If you're following a row of cars, obviously it's a little bit easier because you will see the brake lights of people slowing down for the speed bump. Lots of motorcycles. Motorcycles frustrate me every time I get in the car. Frequently motorcyclists will cut the line at a stoplight, and if they go right away, I have no problem. But, maybe they're chatting to their friend in the motorcycle next to them, and they don't go right away. So if you're in a car, you're frequently waiting longer than you should be at a stoplight. But that's just one of my pet peeves. Pedestrians are not as aware. In some ways, they're more aware that they can be hit, but they're frequently not aware of the danger of driving. We have a much lower percentage of people who have licenses here in Colombia. So I think really a lot of people don't understand the danger of walking down the side of a road. I have frequently been driving at night. There's almost no shoulder because the shoulder is overgrown with weeds, and I see someone the last few meters before I hit them, and I have to swerve because they're wearing a black jacket, walking down the side of the road in the middle of the night in the rain. It's almost impossible in any situation to see that person, and they're nonchalantly walking on the side of the road, just assuming people won't hit them. So pedestrians in some ways are much more aware, but in other ways they're not aware of the situation of the driver. Again, low visibility, a lot of winding roads that don't have a lot of visibility and are not very clear where the wind is going. And then in many cases there is no shoulder. So all of this adds to the danger of the situation. But added to that, bridges sometimes collapse. In my area in Quindío, the two major bridges that most of the trucks cross from going from the Pacific port to the capital cities, the main one collapsed, which diverted almost all the trucks through my local bridge, and that bridge also collapsed I think within the same month. So for about 6 months, the whole country's truck system had to divert a couple hours away up to another city, another set of bridges. That also makes it very difficult for me to get to the nearest big town, which has all the bigger supermarkets and the like that I frequent. So be careful of bridges. Don't assume the bridges are always going to be there. That's number one. Second, when you're driving, be very careful about guardrails. Frequently the guardrails they might just be hanging on the edge. They're not attached to anything because maybe the dirt underneath was undercut or washed away. So be careful about driving near the edge of a road, especially a cliff. I'm going to show you a video in just a moment. It's just a little clip. You will see people trying to block the road to steal the car. That is something that I have never experienced. I haven't really been driving in places that are particularly dangerous, but I have driven most places in Colombia, more than most Colombians, I would say, and I've never had this problem. But every few months on the news you will hear a bus that is stopped and it's the people inside are robbed. I don't believe the bus is stolen, but all the possessions of the people are stolen. In some cases, I have heard of people stealing the car. That's closer to border areas where they can cross the border and break down the car for parts. In my area, I haven't heard anything like that. Another reason that I chose my area, but it is something to consider. And then the last thing I want to mention before I show this video is police frequently are good people, but many times they're coming from poor family situations and they're very bribable. So that is an unfortunate truth of Colombia that you have to deal with, and so try to deal with the police as little as possible. You do get in an accident, apparently I'm understanding there's a third-party system which you have to report so that the police don't have to respond to small accidents. If nobody is hurt, you go to this third-party location and you negotiate, but there is a fee. It's something around $200, that third-party fee. So basically they've made it so that you can't get in trouble for small damage to someone's car. So I was maybe 6 months ago, I was in a small accident where someone took out my wing mirror, and I couldn't really do anything about it. I had the person on video, had everything recorded. Police didn't care. Guy didn't care. Guy went off. I reported that he ran from the scene. I still have his license plate. I was able to look him up, but I can't get an address, so I just have to accept that it's gone. So be careful when driving. There's a lot to consider. In the next video, I'm going to talk about what kind of car I think you should get if you do decide to come down to Colombia. If you rent a car or buy a car, there's things to consider, but I'll talk about that in the next video. So for the last few minutes here, I'm going to show you some pictures of this curve on the road just about 10 minutes outside of my town, and the truck that was hanging off the edge of the cliff, and you can see how dangerous these roads can be and how hard it is to recover your vehicle if you do manage to survive falling off of one of these cliffs. So this is my channel, Gringo Campesino. I hope this information was useful. Contact me if you need any help with anything about Colombia. Thanks.